Well, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Susan Brown, Director of Franklin County Child Support Enforcement Agency. My co-presenters today are Assistant Director William Peltz, or Bill, and Deputy Director Kimberly Collins, or Kim. We're proud to be here today to represent the staff and the work of the CSEA and to present the agency's 2021 budget. This presentation will outline our key accomplishments in 2020 and our policy goals for 2021, how the agency responded and continues to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, the agency contributions to the goals of the county's Rise Together blueprint, our efforts to evaluate policy and educate staff to ensure promotion of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and finally, a summary of our performance spotlight. Before I get started on our accomplishments, I'd like to provide a brief overview of our agency and our 2021 budget. So here are the basics. Our core services consist of paternity and support order establishment, collections on current and past due support, and cost effectiveness. We currently manage 74,113 cases, which represents 92,139 children. Here you will see a breakdown of our families based on race demographics, which is important to understand as we begin addressing racial disparities with an eye toward equity to better meet the needs of our residents. Our financial statement. The Franklin County CSEA has a history of being fiscally responsible. The 2021 budget is a 4.7% decrease over our 2020 budget and includes an 8.1% decrease in our county contribution request, despite our state match revenue remaining flat funded for the past 7 years. Beyond our core services, much of the agency's innovative work is funded through competitive grants, TANF workforce allocations, and federal government research contracts. Our expenditures primarily consist of staffing and program administrative costs, and we attempt to minimize this impact through thoughtful planning and reorganization. For example, a recent restructure of our client information specialist unit resulted in a cost savings of $12,347.70 and no request for additional FTEs. Nationally, the child support program remains one of the most cost-effective government programs that serve families. For every dollar spent in program costs, we collect $8.21 in child support payments for families. Additionally, for every local dollar invested in the child support program, the agency receives $2 in federal financial reimbursement. Over 17% of our budget, or almost $4.4 million, is reinvested into the county through intergovernmental service contracts. Our team is, and special note, that our team is so grateful for the investment that our Board of Commissioners continues to commit to our program.
Good afternoon. Performance statistics. As you can see from the slides, the COVID-19 pandemic and resulting limitations of our services had an impact on our performance. However, not to the full extent that we expected. Paternity establishment decreased by 1% and support establishment by 1.7% over the past year. Collections increased by 8.6%, and overall child support debt arrears decreased for the first time since 2006. We collected $174,870,354 in federal fiscal year 2020. The increase in collections should be a win for our agency, as the receipt of child support is proven to ease the stress of poverty and often lifts families out of poverty. However, this year's increase in collections is somewhat controversial depending on what side of the equation the parent was on as a payor or a payee. The federal stimulus payments provided through the CARES Act were administered through the same program as the IRS offset program. This meant that although this money was intended to support families through the pandemic, federal law required child support agencies to intercept and apply the stimulus payments toward any past due child support. No agency had the authority to exempt the stimulus payments from offset. This generated much emotion and many phone calls to our agency and to our state office.
So rarely does an agency have the opportunity to halt operations for several months and rethink the way it functions. The CSEA, with the Policy Research and Evaluation, or PRE unit, guiding our continuation plan, sees the opportunity to take a diligent approach to how our organization can function more productively in this new environment. By using evidence-based decision-making to implement new policies and procedures to take the CSEA to the next level of service delivery. The agency undertook many actions to help build organizational resilience to the COVID-19 pandemic to alleviate the effects as possible for staff and for clients. Safety protocols were implemented at the individual and organizational level to ensure staff and client safety during in-person operations. At the onset of the pandemic, maximum staff capacity was decreased to 50% each day by switching to an A/B schedule and assigning telework trainings to our at-home staff. However, now we maintain the 50% occupancy with productive teleworking staff. In-person client contact was suspended and cleaning routines implemented. Managers were then tasked with completing a review of their department processes, determining which processes could be completed remotely and technology necessary for success. Simultaneously, we are still reviewing these processes that could not be performed remotely and striving for a telework solution. This process was followed by the completion of a needs assessment for equipment and the number of necessary in-office staff. Accountability metrics were developed for each process for in-office and remote staff to determine reasonable productivity expectations. To consistently and equitably assign our staff to either work from home or in office, the PRE unit developed a flowchart to guide conversations between supervisors and line staff to ensure consistency and understanding of the expectations for working remotely. This included compliance with federal regulations, equipment needs, flexibility for staff with younger school-age children, and communication of accountability metrics. All staff worked with their supervisor to determine their location assignment of either at home, in office, awaiting a device to work from home, or hybrid. Upon completion of the prior steps, departments are releasing staff to work from home as equipment comes available to do so. Accountability metrics for supervisors and managers are in development to ensure appropriate level of performance monitoring in a remote work setting. Tracking tools for accountability metrics are being developed to report on these metrics for the Agency Performance Center presentations, and KPIs will be developed based on the data from these metrics. Additional questions will be added to the employee pulse surveys and will be conducted and monitored beginning December 2020 to gauge staff experience throughout this change management process.
Innovation through evidence-based model. Our agency has undergone a series of organizational changes based on knowledge gained from our grant work in behavioral economics. These changes consist of new approaches in case management, modifications to our table of organization, and a new model for initiatives and decision-making. This model uses the behavioral mapping process to define problems, to diagnose bottlenecks, design interventions, and test new process improvements. The agency has used this approach for continuous evaluation and improvement of processes, development of new policy, decision-making, and direction for new initiatives. The benefits of implementing this model are that it expands our capacity to ensure we're not just making assumptions, we're not just checking boxes. So the children and parents we serve across the economic classes of our population can experience better outcomes. It furthers the implementation and effectiveness of our federal grant work. It responds effectively to the goals and action steps outlined in the Rise Together Blueprint, using strategies that are data-driven, thoroughly analyzed, tested, socially, culturally, and behaviorally informed. And finally, it increases efforts towards racial equity through the county's guidance and the racial justice training programs.
Expanding capacity for better outcomes. We discovered that if we're going to do this work, we had to create the bandwidth within our staff to get the work done that needs to be done. In 2019, we implemented a reorganization of our agency structure that resulted in the development of a planning, research, and evaluation unit. Although the PRE is currently assisting in the development and execution of the COVID-19 continuation plan, their primary functions are performance center presentations, strategic planning, and experience management programs. The PRE coordinates the CSEA Performance Center, a quarterly presentation that explores CSEA's key performance indicators for agency performance, ongoing initiatives put in place to address agency issues, and discusses future interventions that could be undertaken to increase the CSEA's performance and ability to serve our residents. The PRE also coordinates the CSEA strategic plan, which consists of 6 staff-led committees. Most committees have been on hiatus due to COVID-19. However, the Human Resources and Cultural Committee has continued to autonomously produce content to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. The committee has championed the BOC's implicit bias and cultural competency training, consistently acknowledged diverse holidays in the daily communication on the first business day of each month, celebrated Global Diversity Awareness Month with a weekly email digest on a different topic, including racism and microaggressions, creating a trans-inclusive workspace, disability etiquette, and Somali culture, and is presently proposing the creation of internal employee resource groups as a means to celebrate the full diversity of the agency and to potentially uncover institutionalized bias issues that can be addressed by management and administration. So the Experience Management and the BOC County Administration Program Development Implementation. The PRE administered the first Franklin County Customer Experience Survey in spring of 2020, per the Commissioner's desire to have a holistic view of the experience of residents across the BOC agencies. The questions were developed with language that is comparable across agencies. If a complaint is received from a resident, the complaint can be compared to the satisfaction data to determine if the issue is an outlier or if the principles require attention in that agency. The PRE unit is recommending any BOC agency with a Qualtrics license successfully administer this program before developing additional experience management programs, as it aligns with the Commissioner's intention for the licensing and will increase the information available to the BOC regarding resident satisfaction within agencies. Agencies will also become familiar with how Qualtrics works as a tool for collecting information before beginning program development. The CSEA employee experience seeks the same outcome as the customer experience, only for employees. It will allow commissioners to view employee experience principal scores across BOC agencies. Like the customer program, all question language will apply across all agencies and allow for comparable data. Once this is complete, effective, and improved, the PRE unit recommends agencies implement this program in addition to the customer program before developing additional experience management programs so that data can be compared across agencies. The PRE presents the results at each CSEA Performance Center, followed by a discussion of intended actions. The first survey will launch in December of 2020.
Federal grant outreach and special programs. 10 of our most impoverished zip code areas hold 58.12% of all child support debt, or $194,742,981.06. Generally, these parents earn less than $10,000 per year. These areas include the South Side, Parsons and Freebus, Hilltop, Morris Road, Whitehall, and the North Linden area. Father absence is a major component of poverty. Through research, client feedback, and our grant projects, we know that parents find child support agencies and their processes unfair, frustrating, and difficult to navigate. This perception often has a negative effect on non-custodial parents' engagement with the program and compliance with support orders. We know our program must do a better job in establishing relationships and getting information into these communities. So we created the Outreach and Special Programs Unit. When fully operational in the next few months, the unit will consist of a social services supervisor, 2 social program developers, and 3 grant managers. The social program developer will increase capacity for identifying and planning outreach efforts for staff and clients, reviewing and applying for new grant opportunities, and assisting with management of current projects, including responding to inquiries from partners. The unit houses the Family Forward Demonstrations Grant, which is FFD, which tests new strategies to improve the earnings capacity, skill attainment, and financial literacy of low-income parents who owe child support but are unable to meet their obligations due to low earnings. This unit has several goals for 2021. It will continue FFD programming, launch Journey Bees, which we'll describe in a moment, and host monthly information sessions for staff to learn about community partners. In collaboration with other CSA departments, they will host an employer summit information session, identify training opportunities, or create unit discussion guides for issues surrounding domestic violence, poverty, mental health, trauma-informed care, and more. Most importantly, they will also hold outreach events in high arrears zip codes. The Procedural Justice Informed Alternative to Contempt, which is PJAC, is in the final year of a 5-year random control trial, the gold standard of program evaluation. Clients and enforcement are processed through random control assignment when eligible and referred for legal actions such as contempt for non-payment of support. They are processed through random assignment. The treatment group of 921 non-custodial parents are part of a specified caseload where procedural justice concepts, helpfulness, understanding, respect, neutrality, and voice are infused into intensive case management. Case managers seek to determine and address barriers to non-payment of child support. The third-party evaluation team, MDRC, has been completing staff interviews and data collection to determine the effectiveness of services under the grant compared to those of the standard legal process, the control group. MDRC will also complete a cost-benefit analysis of services. These results will help the agency to determine which practices to adopt and implement into everyday case management. The Journey, A Parent's Voice, is a child support-led pilot program in collaboration with Action for Children's Father Factor Program, Goodwill, and Jewish Family Services. The purpose of the program is to recruit and refer new non-custodial parents, which are NCPs, into an integrated employment services and parenting program at their point of entry into the child support program. This early intervention effort aims to maximize positive parenting, increase their capacity to make their child support payments, and to divert them from eventual punitive enforcement actions of the child support program. The Franklin County CSA pilot program, The Journey, was awarded funds by Department of Health and Human Services to be a research trial site for building evidence on employment strategies for low-income family projects, which is BEADS. The kickoff date for implementation is January 2021. The pilot program has already seen successes. We have seen an increase in show rates for administrative support hearings. Before Journey, the show rate for non-custodial parents where we had good service was 60%. Within Journey, our show rate for non-custodial parents was just over 90%.
The CSEA's alignment with the Rise Together blueprint for reducing poverty in Franklin County. This next slide demonstrates examples of where the agency's work aligns with the county's Rise Together poverty blueprint. Goal number 4, improving and increasing the delivery of supportive services for individuals to access employment. Employment services are an essential component of a successful child support program. We have several connection points for services: direct support officer referrals, our Families Forward demonstration grant, and our early intervention program that Kim just mentioned, Journey. These programs provide the following services: barrier removal, employment services, job coaching, job training in in-demand fields, career development, and job placement. Goal number 12, increasing the number of children in safe and stable homes and environments. Our Access Visitation Program is a key program which provides stability services for families. The program provides a grant-funded on-site mediator who assists parents in creating mutually agreeable child support and visitation arrangements, which provides stability in parental care and support from both parents. We're extremely mindful that these services provide a safe way for parents to receive support, especially those parents with a history of domestic violence. Goal number 13, strengthening partnerships with parents to increase support for young people. 2 of our grant programs support this goal: our Journey and Procedural Justice grant programs. The Journey is as Kim mentioned, a collaborative program which offers full wraparound support. These programs emphasize parent, partner, and provider responsibilities, fatherhood skills, and co-parenting skills. These programs provide the benefit of increased family and emotional support to children. Both programs provide intensive case management to address social determinants of health, including employment challenges. Both programs utilize evidence-based practices and behavioral science principles. The resulting increase in reliable payments provides economic stability for the child. Reducing inappropriate uses of judicial contempt helps the CSEA build trust with non-custodial parents by showing them how the agency is a partner with them in providing support for the child. Our PJAC program teaches parents to work together toward conflict resolution, keeping the child at the center of that discussion. And finally, our programs facilitate this dialogue between parents using principles of procedural justice.
Now for some of our 2020 accomplishments. This year's accomplishments certainly reflect the agency's response to the pandemic and how we changed operations and operational protocols to address the challenges of the pandemic. The agency successfully implemented a hybrid work environment by offering avenues of flexibility, which allowed employees to work from home and in the office. Because of stratification and case banking, collection percentages were not adversely impacted by the pandemic. Additional devices are being sourced to provide for continued employee flexibility as the agency continues to weather the storm of the pandemic. We have emphasized employee performance accountability at the individual level so that we are best able to identify and support those staff who are struggling with the pandemic personally to minimize any professional detriment to them and to the department. We continue to hold and emphasize the importance of frequent department-wide meetings through teams to promote organizational unity and interpersonal support with the benefits of social distancing. These occur at the daily, weekly, monthly, and bi-monthly frequency levels. The pandemic has highlighted the benefits of stratification within our enforcement department, both within and across units. The units which were previously stratified serve as a successful template for implementing a more stratified approach across other units. The demonstrated advantages include improved accountability and the targeted development of deep personal expertise, more effective teamwork, and the customer satisfaction afforded by a full case management approach. It is a model that is translated well to the increased work from home levels and continually changing staffing structure that resulted from the pandemic. With the consolidation of the county's Human Services Program, now called Health and Human Services Integrated Services, in 2021, we'll have the opportunity to work closely with the Office on Aging, Justice Policy and Programs, and Job and Family Services in collectively serving our mutual clients. So far this year, we're getting to know each other's programs and we're conducting data analysis to determine our common populations. And lastly, continuous program performance improvement through performance center methodology.
On a very high level, these are our key policy initiatives for 2021. We'll continue to develop the cross-agency collaboration strategies of our Health and Human Services Integrated Services programs. We'll continue to expand telework opportunities, including a remote call center and staff client calling capability. We'll expand our virtual opportunities for client case management. We'll expand marketing of the child support portal and the child support application or the child support app as the primary means of client contact. We'll increase social media presence by taking advantage of collaboration opportunities with the HHS agencies, Office on Aging, Justice Policy and Programs, and with JFS. We'll increase cross-project collaboration between department managers and supervisors. We'll continue to develop the cross-department expectations and accountability standards for supervisors and managers. We'll resume the development of a brand and marketing strategy for the program. We'll continue to enhance experience management project. We'll solidify relationships with community leaders to provide information in their communities about the child support program. And we'll develop a more interactive administrative hearing experience by incorporating Zoom as modeled by the domestic courts.
And finally, our performance spotlight for this budget year is the percent of current support obligations collected on time. This measure is important because for low-income parents, child support comprises up to 40% of their household income. Collecting the support obligation in the month due directly correlates to the federal performance measure of collections on current support. Any support not collected in the month due becomes past due support, and the agency loses the opportunity to increase federal financial participation, or FFP funding, in this category. Utilizing findings from our Behavioral Interventions in Child Support grant, we are able to better understand an individual's behavior and decision-making process to increase their likelihood of making timely payments. The additional FFP awarded due to the increase in collections is used to expand child support services we deliver to parents.
So that about covers all we have time to cover in 20 minutes. We're happy to take any questions. Prior to that, I'd like to reiterate Jed's comments of appreciation for your leadership through this pandemic. It has been thorough and outstanding, and we very much appreciate your help.
So one of the questions that I have, and I appreciate so much all that you've done to re-engineer the department, the agency, and do all of what you've done so innovatively. With COVID and with so many people being out of work, child support collections have been difficult, I imagine. What is the process that you do to stop collections that are based on employment? And what kind of workouts are you working on to help our families during this time that's so difficult for so many families? And yet we've got so many families in need because of child support not being there. And what can we expect to be able to do? It's such a difficult situation, and I know so many people have their wages garnished, but if they have no wages, what do we do, and how can we help these families get what they need for their children and not be a burden to the families?
Thank you, Commissioner. That was a really great multi-layered question.
I know.
So again, as Kim mentioned in her comments, we always have to take into consideration that there's the payor, the payee, there's the family that needs the child support, and then there's the family that may be struggling to pay child support. And we have to balance that by looking at all of our clients as individuals on a case-by-case basis. So one of the first things that happened during the pandemic, and this happened on a statewide level, is that we discontinued sending out default notices. And that happened early this summer. So basically, we discontinued our enforcement efforts just up until recently, until about a month ago. And then, and even now, and again, this is statewide, even now, we can release those default notices, but it's a manual process, and we would have to release them through the system. So it isn't automated like it used to be. It's very individualized now. So we want to make sure, and our staff do an incredible job at looking at each case on a case-by-case basis. What are the circumstances surrounding the non-payment? And more importantly than anything is that we couldn't do our work in a vacuum. We partner with some of the best employment services organizations in the county, such as Goodwill and Jewish Family Services. So we oftentimes make direct connections to employment counselors to help people get back on their feet. Not only that, we have FFD, which is Families Forward demonstration, and I'll just give an anecdotal story from today. Christy Nichols, our social services supervisor, she stopped by my office and she was on her way to go to Tractor Supply to get a client a pair of work boots so he could start in heavy equipment training today. And she coached him on the TABE test until he passed that test. So child support is very much different in its approach than it has been in the past. Now, collection wise, this year has been an anomaly because our collections have actually gone up by about $11 million and by about 8%. And the reason for that were the stimulus payments. And again, a very controversial practice. The stimulus payments are run through the same process as the IRS intercepts, and the states had no discretion to stop that process. It's all mandated on the federal level. So that was the one of the main reasons for the increase. And the other main reason for the increase is that, although many people were out of work, they also received enhanced unemployment payments as well, which also helped to pay child support. Kim or Bill, do you have anything to add?
I was just going to add on as far as if families are struggling, we always have the modification process. So that's our goal, is to make sure that whatever their current situation is, that truly reflects the family. And we're definitely promoting that when clients call in that they're having problems.
Yeah, that means we're using actual wages in all possible cases that we can, that reflect the actual ability of a parent's, or the actual ability for the parents to pay.
Director Brown, can I jump in just really quick?
Absolutely.
Joy Bivens, Deputy County Administrator of Health and Human Services. Commissioner Brown, to your point, one of the reasons I believe that one of the beautiful things I think about integrating our human service agencies is for the very question that you asked, right? So we come together every other week, and what we're finding is the commonality that, bleeds across or trends across us, and then trying to braid resources. So we just started doing this, and as we move forward, progressing forward, we're going to be able to resource, some of Susan's families, which are the same families that we have, and they have direct pipelines into programs like Building Futures or Driving Futures, or and there's not a lot of red tape. So I think as we go forward, we're going to be able to complement each other's agencies in a greater capacity.
Which I love, because it needs to happen that way, that it's more integrated.
I thank Director Bivens for her comments, and we're very excited that we're now part of the integrated services program. We have in the past collaborated, having a JFS worker within the lobby, in that, it's not about, good luck, Godspeed, you have to pay. It really is about, how can we help you then? Let's find out the reason why you're not paying. And honestly, you may have to get 2 or 3 other things squared up in your life before you can even think about paying child support. And again, it's a very holistic, humanistic approach, rather than a punitive approach. Any other questions?
Did Commissioner Boyce have any questions?
I do not.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to weigh in. I mean, you guys are always doing some innovative stuff, and I appreciate that. You guys are always weighing in with the next big approach, which is good stuff. And I think you guys do a great job of weighing in with the community and getting different providers involved, different different folks in the community involved, different. You're not just a collection agency. You're not just you're not just tracking folks down. You're working with folks, trying to meet them where they are, trying to reach out to different, whether it's faith-based organizations, whether it's different groups and agencies and organizations within the community to try to do the next thing to help meet people where they are, to not break up families, not make sure that it's not just about making the collection. It's about making sure that that the family either obviously the families in a tough situation. That's the reason why you guys are doing what you're doing already, and you're not trying to make it any worse than it already is, and you're not trying to put people that are already in a tough situation into a tougher situation. And you guys have been, the entire time I've been a county commissioner, you guys have been very cognizant of that situation. You guys have been very on the cutting edge of making sure that that you're doing that in the community, and folks appreciate it. I hear it from people all the time. And so you guys do a great job of that, and it's appreciated. And we as commissioners hear about it. So great job. We appreciate it.
Commissioner O'Grady, thank you for your comments and always your very strong support across the board. And honestly, we couldn't do what we do to the capacity that we do it without your support. Because of sometimes the allocation rules, the state funding that's been flat for the last 7 years, and commissioners, you've kept us steady at a steady level of service by your commitment. So thank you. All right, I think that's a wrap for us.
Thanks, Susan, and thanks to the rest of the child support enforcement team.
Nice job.